Hello my beautiful ride-on people. Today is a very special day. I'll give you a clue why. Even my cat's excited. Today I'm going to ride the new KTM 790 Adventure R. KTM brought out the parallel twin last year in the 790 Duke, which was an upgrade from the old 690 Duke model. And now they brought out a new mid-size, by today's standards, adventure bike. They have a road version, which is the S model, and then the one that everybody really wants, the cool looking R model, which has taller suspension and a taller, thinner front wheel. Anyway, I have a brand new one lined up. Literally nobody has ridden this bike, and I'm going to ride it and give you my first initial impressions. Okay, let's quickly run through the bike on the KTM website. The 790R, which is shown here in this picture. This bike is basically part of what KTM call their travel bikes. Travel bikes range from the 1090, which is the kind of old school L8 motorcycle, to the 1290s, both in sport, which is really their road bike, and R, which is the taller suspended and taller, skinnier front wheel off-road versions of the 1290. 1290 is a very powerful bike, it's a very good bike. I think the Multistrada probably would be better on track, and the GS Adventure probably a better all-rounder on the road, but it's definitely a powerful and sporty bike. 1090 R is obviously the kind of off-road version of the Adventure, and equally in the 790 guys, I don't know why they don't call this the Adventure S, but they don't, and that's a standard kind of road bike. And then the R sits that little bit taller, has more knobbly tyres and a skinnier front hoop for getting over off-road obstacles. They also had the very serious 450 rally bike, which is obviously built for kind of Dakar, and the 690 Enduro, which is pretty quick off-road bike. But today we're interested in the 790 Adventure R, and let's have a just slightly deeper look at that. So this is probably the best looking 790 in my personal opinion. The 790 is a parallel twin, and this is a 800cc bike, putting out about 94 horsepower as it shows there. And if I just expand this slightly, you can see in terms of suspension travel is longer, and its overall dry weight is 189 kilo. There's 2.2 pounds per kilo, so you can kind of work that out yourself, but I suspect it's about 400 pounds wet or dry, I should say. And then you have a 20 litre capacity for your tank. So I think there's in a UK gallon, I think there's 4.54 litres, and the US gallon is just slightly smaller than that. So in terms of its motor, it is such a tiny footprint. This particular bike has got 2 balancer shafts for smoothness, and it is so compact. It's almost like a big single, really, and has long service intervals, about every 9,000 miles. It's an 8-valve head, and there's plenty of obviously accessory parts from the orange catalogue of KTM for this particular bike, including the Akropovich slip-on line. And one nice thing they've done here with the air filter access, you just pop the seat off, pop this little cover off, and this is a washable filter, I believe, that you can just literally just pop out with your fingers and pop back in. It's a really nice simple touch, that. It's a liquid cooled bike, obviously, and thoroughly modern. Has the radiator protection guard there as standard, along with fork gaiters. It's got a steel trellis subframe. I'm not sure whether it's a bolt-on, which would be a good thing for off-road, or it's physically welded like a Tiger. The swing arm is this die-cast open lattice item. They've been using this kind of design for some time now, and it's quite effective in terms of structural bracing versus weight saving. The R model has the 21-inch front wheel and the 18-inch rear. It's fitted with Karoo tyres as standard, and they're pretty aggressive, pretty
pretty good. I would say they're a good 80/20 tyre for off-road use. Suspension is high quality, fully adjustable WP. As mentioned, they are owned by KTM themselves. 48mm forks with beefy triple clamps and a steering damper are all standard items. 4-piston radial monoblocks up front with a 2-piston caliper at the rear is fairly de rigueur for most bikes these days, and stopping should be pretty fair with this particular bike, as the weight is not such a big penalty. This is an area that's caused a lot of discussion amongst owners or would-be owners, is the fuel tank. The fuel tank is not above the engine where it would be traditionally. It's actually in this lower big kind of huge sump guard area. The reason why they've done that is because fuel is quite heavy, and the lower and more centrally you can mass that fuel, the better the balance of the bike. These covers are supposed to be incredibly strong structurally, and they're designed to slide should you come off the bike, and they're supposed to be very split resistant. So in theory, you throw your bike down the road, it shouldn't mean that you're going to spill out gallons of fuel and the bike's going to burst into flames or anything like that. And it should help in terms of the balance of the bike. And I understand the fuel economy and therefore range is very good on this particular bike, and you should be able to see kind of 200 miles or more before you need to refuel. I do like the ergonomics of the bike. The black bars are tapered, which is a nice touch, and KTM have really upped their game in recent years in terms of the general build quality of the fit and finish of the bikes. They always had quality components, they were always exceptional off-road, but particularly their on-road bikes, the switchgear would look very flimsy and plasticky, finish on the tanks wouldn't be very good, and they look very much an off-road bike rather than a quality on-road bike that you could feel proud to own. The seat is a very sleek and cool looking number, and in the ride-on part of this video I will give you my feedback on initial impressions in terms of actually comfort and ergonomics once underway. The windshield is very minimalist and aggressive, and in theory should provide smoother airflow but stronger wind resistance up to about 80 miles an hour or so. Particularly good if you live in a hot climate or the summertime when you want airflow, less so in the winter when you want more protection from the cooler winds. Becoming pretty normal for adventure bikes now is a GPS mount and TFT clocks, and KTM were quite pioneers of the TFT electronics, and they continue to keep on pushing the envelope in that respect. The Praying Mantis headlights sometimes divide opinions. I really like them, and particularly the DRL aspect. I think it's a very cool looking, distinguishing feature of modern KTMs. KTM have a very sophisticated suite of electronics and software on this particular bike. I believe the IMU is a Bosch unit, and there's significant rider aids in terms of traction control, cornering ABS and off-road ABS. Additionally, the 790R benefits from a Pro Shifter, which allows both clutchless upshifts and downshifts, and cruise control. Again, cruise control is very much becoming a standard feature on larger capacity motorcycles as well. It should. Alright, just about to ride the 2019 KTM 790 Adventure R. Resplendent in this beautiful white, orange and black colour scheme with the colour TFT. Quite tall actually, kind of GS Adventure tall. It's got the taller, skinnier front wheel. Well, these mirrors sure are pig ugly, but they do a good job of showing what's behind you. So this bike has done only 12 miles, and we're in street mode, in street ride mode, and we're in road mode for ABS, and MTC is on, which is the electronics traction control. Yeah, mirrors are very good, and the bike feels very thin, as you'd imagine, KTM, and very light. Very thin, very light, very tall, very typical KTM in generically speaking in terms of their off-road range. But this of course is a bike that will be ridden by many predominantly on-road, and probably 80-90% of the time, and that's kind of reflected in the tyres, which are a kind of 80-20 mix, I'd say. And they feel pretty good. They're very knobbly, but actually feel quite good underway. Well respected engine, going by reviews, and I can kind of see why. It's pretty smooth, you know, it's just chugging along, top gear, 50 miles an hour, kind of 3,000 revs. Feels pretty smooth. I mean, not inline 4 or 6 smooth, but as smooth as most V-twins. I quite like the switch gear. It looks a little bit plasticky, but actually feels very slick, works very well in terms of the turn signals, etc. I like the orange hand guards. That's a nice little touch, obviously very KTM. Definitely instantly feels quite well balanced. That the first couple of feet at a standstill, it felt a little bit kind of almost kind of wobbly, and I thought, oh, is this going to feel kind of top heavy and tippy? But actually, as soon as you move away, it feels fine. Carrying its fuel low down obviously must help with that in terms of stability, and feels pretty nice. We've had an absolute deluge of rain today. I mean, I was supposed to be riding this at 10 AM. It's now 12:30 because there was just so much heavy rain, just could not ride it. But this is a bike I've wanted to ride for quite some time, and it's interesting to see how I feel about the middleweight adventure bikes compared with the bigger bikes. The bigger bikes, generalising, have more comfort and better carrying capacity, and exude that air of kind of going forever without going pop, hopefully. But you know, the middleweights, as they're called nowadays, the kind of 8 to 900cc or 950cc typically bikes, they are so much lighter and more agile and a lot more fun to ride, and it gives them a sportier edge, if you like. And in terms of speed, certainly around town, like the sort of speeds we're doing at the moment, 40-50 miles an hour, you know, you're only using the lower third of the rev range, and it's got ample go. And I suspect when we get on the faster stretches, where we're able to stretch its leg at kind of freeway speeds, it will still feel equally good. Now, typical of KTM, the bench seat is a little bit on the firm side. They do offer different seats. One seems to be a kind of touring seat, which is much more kind of bucket shaped, and there's another that's kind of low and another that's high. I think the higher one is just additional padding, and for somebody I'd say over 6'2", that would be worthwhile having. I'm kind of 6'1", 6'2", and for me, I wouldn't want the seat any higher. This feels, you know, I'm kind of struggling to flat foot on this bike. I'm kind of more 1 foot flat and the other on the ball of my foot, and it doesn't feel bad, but I wouldn't want to push that higher, I don't think. This is a very low screen, which on a hot humid day like today is perfect, but I do wonder what it would be like on a December day when the wind's blowing cold. It might not be so nice. So if you live in a colder climate, or you like to ride all year round, you might want to think of other options in terms of protective screen. The one thing I can say at these low speeds, of course, is that there isn't really any buffeting or turbulence, but again, as speed picks up, we get on the freeway or what have you, we'll see whether that changes. So just revving out a little bit into the mid-range there, 6,000 revs or so, it definitely has a more aggressive bark to it. You can definitely hear the engine's working that little bit harder. It's not particularly harsh, it's just that you can kind of hear it starting to get into the meat of it, and it'd be nice to feel this opened up a little bit. The brakes are pretty nice on it, they're powerful enough. I don't think they are going to blow anybody's minds, but they are definitely up to the job, and they have a nice smooth linear feel to them, and the clutch is pretty light with a nice, really nice engagement point, and very, very smooth in that as well. Just do a couple of clutchless upshifts. Yeah, that wasn't too bad at all. 50 miles an hour plus, just getting a slight bit of whistle, wind noise. I'll just close my visor fully. So feeling a little bit of wind pressure on the kind of tops of my shoulders, neck area. Not a problem, just reminding you you're riding a motorcycle at the end of the day. Clocks are pretty clear. I like the fact that, say, you know, the important bits like what speed you're doing are very large, and it's pretty easy to see what revs you're doing and what gear you're in. This information here is very tiny. I guess you're not that bothered a lot of the time, but it's got the date and the trip and the odometer and the voltage for your battery and the time and the ambient temperature. Now I can see my trip and range. So range is 105 miles there. And there's a back button here to go back. So not quite you know, BMW GS TFT standards, which I wouldn't expect it to be at this price range, but pretty nice all the same. And I think this retails for, I may be wrong, but I believe 13,995 before taxes, and that would seem fair value for money on face value, based on the initial ride so far. It's a very good looking bike, very versatile bike, and for 14,000 it seems to be about right in terms of the price for the equipment you're getting and the looks and the general fit and finish of this type of bike. In some ways it's not unlike the Tiger XCA with its taller, skinnier front wheel, more off-road biased, but it definitely feels a little bit kind of sportier, a little bit racier. I'm not sure whether the Triumph might feel a very slight tad better built or more road orientated, a little bit smoother with its lovely triple engine. This feels a little bit more kind of engaging and sportier and fun in that respect. So depends what your penchant is and what you're coming from. If you're coming from a sports bike and you kind of want more upright practical bike, but you still want it to be fun and sporty, you're probably going to favour the KTM. If you're coming from say a large adventure bike or an existing comfortable all-round street bike, then you may favour the Triumph in actual fact, or possibly the Ducati, the Multistrada 950. And the Ducati has some advantages now. It has the sky hook suspension and a few other little tricks up its sleeve. I think it's got cruise control as well, and it's a nice all-round package, but it also costs more as well. So I think that's another $3,000, and our lead rider there should have been a little bit more observant when the Gladiator tried to pull across on him. I guess it's easy to say that when you're looking from afar, so no disrespect to him, but you've got to keep them peeled, guys, because they'll take you out if you don't. That's nice, that new Jeep Gladiator, I must admit. I hope we're going to get a bit of freeway action in a minute, and because I'd really like to feel what this is like at a bit of higher cruising speeds. It'd be nice just to feel what the airflow management is like and how smooth the engine is when you get up to a little bit faster. It looks like the freeway is quite busy at the moment, so I don't know if the KTM lead rider is going to take us on that route or not. I'm quite digging the seat and suspension on this. It feels very firm. It's not unlike the GSA in dynamic mode, where you've got the suspension set to its firmest setting, and that's generally no bad thing on a long ride. On a shorter ride you might want to soften it up with if you've got electronic suspension like the GSA has and stuff, then you know, you can soften things up a little bit. But yeah, we fixed suspension. Firmer's usually a bit better, particularly the further the distance, you know. I'm a pretty heavy guy, about 240 pounds, and I think it's fairly firm, but it's good. It supports my heavy weight well. If you were significantly lighter, sub 200 pounds, you might find it a little bit on the firm side of things, but you can always adjust it, soften it up a little bit, and also change the seat as well if that helps you. But it was pretty good. These are brand new tyres on roads that are drying, and they're quite knobbly, so I'm not going to get my knee down or anything today, unfortunately. But they are gripping okay. I think it wears Carews, Metzeler Carews, and they feel pretty good actually. So yeah, I definitely got like my left foot fully flat and the ball of my right foot on the ground. So okay if the road is a little bit off camber, but for really off cambers, if you're kind of like, I would say 5'8" and below, you're going to potentially struggle a little bit on this R model. The S model, well, they actually don't call it the S, just the Adventure 790 model would probably be a better option for you guys, particularly if you don't ride off-road. I thought the Gladiator was going to get you. So I was just chatting with the lead rider there, saying how the Jeep Gladiator nearly took him out. That wouldn't have been much fun. So as with all bikes, I think there's a lot you have to consider. It's not just how well the vehicle performs on the test ride. That's one aspect, but ownership is also, you know, in the eye of the beholder to some extent. So, you know, how reliable you think the brand is going to be, how many dealers you have in your local area if your dealer you purchase from suddenly drops the mark, and you know, what your long-term views are, and possibly personal finances, you know, whether say residual values are important to you because you change your bike regularly, or whether you don't really care because you tend to keep your bike forever. Those kind of aspects is you know, should always be taken into consideration when purchasing. But just from a pure riding perspective, this is definitely a nice vehicle. It feels, you know, the controls are very light, the engine's pretty smooth, and it seems to have enough go. So we're going to do a bit of 75 north. We're in Marietta at the moment, and that'll give a chance to feel what the bike's like opened up a little bit, and I'm eager to feel that, to see whether there's a nice airflow, which would be lovely on this super hot day, and whether there's lots of buffeting that comes with that airflow or not, and also how the engine does at kind of freeway speeds. I suspect it's going to be pretty nice. It's got that kind of V-twin rumble, but it's not you know, not particularly vibey or annoying, I have to say. The whole bike feels pretty slick, fairly responsive. You know, you're not going to get, you know, a bike sort of 1250cc type of torque out of it, but of course you're not going to get 1250cc weight out of a bike like this. So you pay your money and you take your choice a little bit. Is agility more important to you, or, you know, more weight and more power? You know, this is a nice combination. So here we go, we're in top gear, which is 6th, and we're doing kind of 70 miles an hour, and we're pushing about just over 4,000 revs at 70, and this is typical cruising speed for many people, and it's kind of okay. It's a little bit buzzy compared with, say, directly with my own Boxer at 1250, and probably a little bit buzzy compared with the Triumph. Not too dissimilar to the other L Twin, or the other V Twin from Ducati. in the Multistrada 950, and the bike feels pretty stable. Just a very slight oscillation, but there's a strong crosswind today, and the winds are quite strong. Getting nice airflow. Again, probably not too dissimilar to a GS road version with the screen down, so not too bad at all. For me, who's used to riding the 1250 GSA, the main impression you get with these middleweights is just how agile and fun they feel. They really do handle a treat, and you really can throw them around with some aplomb and probably embarrass some similar capacity sports bikes, to be honest with you, on a well-ridden bike. So it's carrying its fuel low in the sump, you know, beneath the front headers, rather than up here where the airbox is, where it is traditionally. Actually at kind of walking pace, it doesn't quite have the balance of the big boxer, and it definitely feels a little bit more top heavy than that, which kind of surprises me a little bit. But equally, you know, I don't want to make a thing of that. It's not like a Tiger 1200, for instance, where you constantly feel there's too much weight high up and it makes the bike feel unstable. It's just a little less stable than the solid as a rock GSA, which is the obvious thing that I'm going to compare it against, even though they're different bikes of different capacity. It's obviously what I ride day to day, so it's an easy comparison. I think the real comparison is, you know, do you go for a Multistrada 950 or a Tiger 800 or this? I would say, you know, ride them all and make your own mind up firstly. Don't rely on reviews too much, just use that as a kind of secondary feedback. But I would say typically trying to build a nice, well screwed together, reliable bike. The Tiger is probably the least appealing visually, but I suspect it would be possibly the most reliable, if that's important to you particularly. And the Ducati and KTM sometimes have a bit hit and miss quality control and reliability. You know, you can argue that till the cows come home. Some people think they're as reliable as anything else, and other people wouldn't touch them with a barge pole, and that's your prerogative to make that judgment call yourself. I wouldn't have any qualms. I've owned a few Ducatis. I wouldn't have any qualms buying another one, but I have had a few minor problems with my own Ducatis, and one of my Ducatis, after I sold it, blew up also. And KTMs, I've generally only spoken to owners who absolutely love their bikes, and I've enjoyed riding KTMs myself. But I also ride with people who have met KTM owners who have had an horrendous time of ownership as well. So, you know, it's you've got to kind of ride them, talk to existing owners, not pay too much attention to the forums. I'd say talk to existing owners more, and just make your own mind up on that. But overall, I think KTM have done a nice job here, and I like its agility and sportiness in the way in which it looks. I think it's a really good looking bike, so yeah, hats off to KTM. Well done, boys.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I really appreciate all your feedback and support for the Ride On channel. I hope you're already a Ride On subscriber, but if not, please subscribe straight away. And last but not least, ride often, ride carefully, ride on.